Hey there, folks. Welcome to another stream here. We've got a couple songs I want to try and get into here today. This one is pretty close. It just needs the lead vocal put in and then a little bit of referencing, and it should be good to go and get sent off to the client. And then we've got another one that has just a demo vocal on it, but the client is going to come in and put their real vocal down afterwards, just sending them a finished instrumental as well as one with a demo vocal. So let me kind of hit play here on this track. We can hear how the instrumental is sitting and go from there. Okay, something I always like to do when I'm jumping back into a mix, it's not always the greatest idea to leave a mix before you're finished with it, or at least before everything is in. So I'm going to go back through quickly here. We're going to flip to mono, and we're going to do a little bit of rebalancing and see where we end up here. Okay, that's feeling like a good balance to start here. Let me get the lead vocal into play here, and we can kind of get this song up and running, reference it, and move on here. Trying to work through these as quick as possible here.
2 or 3 days later, we were driving to Detroit. Nobody. 2 or 3 days later, we were driving to Detroit. Nobody's day 1 September. It was a dark day 1 September, and a storm had just passed through the bulky clothes. 2 or 3 days later, we were driving to Detroit. Nobody's gonna know about it. I went along without a fight. The silent ride. 2 or 3 days.
Okay, just a high pass in to start. Get some compression going on this. I'm going to go to this chorus section here because it's a louder piece. That's where I want to set my compressor.
Now I know that I.
See where we're sitting.
Now I know that I'm forgiven, and by God's grace I've been saved. Now I know that I'm forgiven. Now I know that I'm forgiven and now I know that I'm forgiven and by God's grace up. Now I know that I'm forgiven and by God's grace I've been set free. Now I know that I'm forgiven and by God's grace I've been set free.
A little bit of de-essing before we do any boosting.
Now I know that I'm forgiven and by God's grace I've been set free. Forgiven and by God's grace I've been set free. The little man forgiven and by God's grace I've been set free.
Cool.
The little man, 2 or 3 days later we were driving to Detroit. Nobody's gonna know.
And you know what? I always forget to do this. Let's make sure the volume is even coming in and out of this compressor so we don't lose any volume.
Now I know. Now I know. Now I know. Now I know.
So see, we can gain some volume here.
Now I know. Now I know that I'm forgiven and by God.
We'll bump this up a little bit for safety.
Now I know that I'm forgiven and by God's grace I've been set free. The little man forgiven and by God's grace I've been set free.
Cool.
2 or 3 days later we were driving to Detroit. Nobody's gonna know about it. I went along with that. 2 or 3 days.
Now I want to get some top end.
2 or 3 days later we were driving to Detroit. Nobody's gonna know about it. 2 or 3 days later we were driving to Detroit. Nobody's gonna know about it. I went along without a fight. The silent ride was deafening. I guess we didn't 2 or 3 days later we were driving to Detroit. Nobody's gonna know. 2 or 3 days later we were driving to Detroit. 2 or 3 days later we were driving to Detroit. Oh, 2 or 3 days later we were driving to Detroit. 2 or 3 days later we were driving to Detroit. Nobody's gonna know about it. I went along without a fight. The silent ride was deafening. I guess we didn't 2 or 3 days later we were driving to Detroit. Nobody's gonna know about it. Now I know that I'm forgiven and by God's grace I've been set. 2 or 3 days later we were driving to Detroit. Nobody's gonna know about it. I went along without a fight. The silent ride was deafening. I guess we didn't understand that the
Ooh, let's get this reverb turned on. And we'll start at the verse.
It was a dark day one September and a storm had just passed through. The bulky clothes that I'd been wearing couldn't hide what Mama knew. I was certain that she'd tell Daddy and things were about to change. One visit to my mama's doctor and my whole life was rearranged. The walls were closing in on us like puppets on a string. It was a dark day one September and a storm had just passed through. The bulky clothes that I've been wearing couldn't hide what Mama knew. I was certain that she'd tell Daddy and things were about to change. One visit to my mama's doctor and my whole life was rearranged.
That's feeling like a really good start. I'm going to reference here, and we'll do any final tweaks. We'll call this done, and we'll move on to the next track here. So we're going to start with the bottom end, do the super, super lows, and then start at the super, super highs. Once I get the bottom end in place, things kind of feel like they sit where they're supposed to. If you don't have the bottom end right, oh, sorry, standing up there for a minute. If you don't get the bottom end right, it really feels weak in a track. So let's kind of get this in play here. I don't think we're going to need a harmony. I'm going to leave the background vocal folder, but we don't have any, and we probably won't have any. If you do have subs, watch your ears here. This is going to get a little bit loud. I'm going to flip to mono as well. Looks like we could use just a bump on the kick there. Cool. That's our bottom end. Now we're going to do 50 to 100 hertz here. That feels good. So you can see it's not usually too much about matching the reference track exactly. This is just a song. I know what it sounds like. It's an engineer that I admire. If you know, I guess online engineers, YouTube engineers, you'll recognize the song here from Joe Gilder over at Home Studio Corner. Always loved his mixes. It's kind of a guy I came up watching. So it's a song I know very, very well. So I know what it sounds like across systems. And to me, it's a good starting point to know, okay, I can go a little bit more here with the bottom end. I can kind of set the vocals here. I know what it sounds like if it's too much on the top end. I know where to dial it back. It's a good starting point and it's good reference. Okay, vocals sitting pretty good. Could use some more top end click. That's feeling pretty good there. So let's keep moving down. We're kind of moving down in octaves. Some of these won't be exactly octaves, but they'll be pretty close here. So 2K to 5K is a little bit over an octave. Same thing, we're going to start in mono here. Could use a little bit more here on the snare. Better. So you can see we have a little bit more energy going on in the instrumental here, which is okay. I kind of dig it. So now we're 1K to 2K, so this is about an octave here. You can see we have more mid-range on our kick. I'm okay with that. I like a more full-sounding kick. A touch out there on the vocals, that's all. Moving down, 500 to 1K here.
2 or 3 days later, we were driving to Detroit. Know about it. 2 or 3 days later, we're driving to Detroit. Know about it.
Sounds good to me. Let's keep moving down. So the more you reference and the more you know what things sound like out in the real world, in your car, or on the radio, or in a club, on a speaker system, you're going to get more and more comfortable getting your mix to a point that it translates really well here. So now we're at 250 or 200 to 500, so a little over an octave here. So we're a little heavy there. Let's pull some of that out. Better. Perfect, perfect. All right, let's keep moving down. Last section here, I like to do 100 to 250 here. So a little bit of a crossover. Here I like a feather snare. Sounded really, really good here. So let's go all the way now, 100 to 10K. So this is kind of like the NS10 range here.
2 or 3 days later, we were driving to Detroit. 2 or 3 days later, we were driving to Detroit. Nobody's gonna know about it. I went along without a fight. The silent rag was deafening. I guess we didn't understand that 6-month babe inside of me would never live to be a man. The little man I never met is waiting there for me. I told him I was sorry for the thing that I had done. How Jesus has forgiven me so I can meet you, son, when I come home. Well, I guess I'm gonna...
All right, we're going to listen through the entire track here. I'm going to throw on my speakers. It sounds really good in my headphones. So I'm going to switch it over to my mains here. We're going to listen through the whole track. And we're going to call this done. Hopefully call it done here. Oh, so we need that. All right, here we go from the beginning.
It was a dark day one September, and a storm had just passed through. The bulky clothes that I've been wearing couldn't hide what Mama knew. I was certain that she'd tell Daddy, and things were about to change. One visit to my mama's doctor, and my whole life was rearranged. The walls were closing in on us like puppets on a string. The devil's web of cunning lies had trapped and drawn us in. With everything inside of me, I wanted just to scream. I needed someone, anyone, to shake me from this dream. 2 or 3 days later, we were driving to Detroit. Nobody's gonna know about it. I went along without a fight. The silent rag was deafening. I guess we didn't understand that 6-month babe inside of me would never live to be a man. Now I know that I'm forgiven, and by God's grace I've been set free. The little man I never met is waiting there for me. I told him I was sorry for the thing that I had done. How Jesus has forgiven me so I can meet you, son, when I come home. Well, I guess I'm gonna call you Jimmy. You know I think about you now and then. 40-something years have come and gone, just a once-upon-a-time event. 4 of us set out that day when Satan led us to Detroit. But only 3 came home in the old Ford van, and little Jimmy went with the Lord. An old bridge we were driving o'er some 40 years ago. I caught the glimpse of a daddy and his little boy fishing down below. Somehow I still can see that image still today. And I know that you and Jesus will be waiting by the river bank. Now I know that I'm forgiven, and by God's grace I've been set free. The little man I never met, he's waiting there for me. I told him I was sorry for the thing that I had done. How Jesus has forgiven me so I can meet you, son, when I come home. Yeah, me, you and Jesus going fishing, son, when I come home. When I come home. When I come home.
All right, that feels really, really good to me. I was checking the fade out there to make sure everything was okay, but it sounds really, really good. I think we're going to leave this one here. Before I jump into another song, I'm going to take a quick break, maybe get a bite to eat, make a sandwich or something here. So we'll end the first stream here, and then I'll jump back on and we'll do the second song. But I'm really happy with how this first song has come out. So I'm going to turn off the limiter here. So this is ready for mastering, and we should be all set with this one. So we'll save, and then I'll actually show you how I set up mastering, but I need to rename this song as well before I send it out. So we're going to go to File here, rename. I think it's called When I Come Home. So we're going to put that in just so when I send this out to the mastering project session, it has a name on it. When we'll let it update the name here, and it'll kind of go through on all the files and re-render them in as well here. Cool, got our new name on there. We'll give it a save with the new name. And then let me show you how we actually master these here. So I'm going to take this whole project here, or this whole song session. We're going to come to Song, if it'll load. And then we go to Add to Project, New Project. And then I like to call these the artist name, especially if it's not an album. That way I can master all the artist's songs in the same project. And if they do end up having an album, I can save that as its own project. But for individual songs, especially from artists who come back and do a bunch of singles, I like to pack all those into the same mastering session. That way, as I send them finished songs, I can kind of get a gauge of, are we catching the artist's vibe? Are all these songs kind of hitting the same requirements here? And that can make it easier to make the artist happy. If we finish one song and the artist is really happy with it, as we do other songs, I can import them into that same mastering session and kind of match between, like, does this sound similar? Is it catching the same vibe that the artist was happy with before? We're loading up my glyph drive here to find the folder. Sometimes it takes a second. Ooh, I keep yawning here. There we go. So this is my artists folder, and I just go to the artist's name, projects, and it'll create a new project folder there for the artist. And then as I hit OK, it'll do a couple things here. It'll create this project session for the artist, for the song, and then I can also, automatically bounce down the finished mix into this project here. So it'll reopen the session and it'll bounce down this track here, which is kind of nice in Studio One that it does everything automatically like this. And another reason I like Studio One here is I do like having the two different sections here. So this is the song page that we're looking at right now. It's where we can do our recording and our mixing, our editing as well. And then over in the project page, it's a separate section. Oh, I don't know why I keep yawning here. A separate section specifically designed for mastering tracks. Do I use drum samples to replace tracks sometimes? Sometimes, but what I actually do is I end up using pieces of the actual drums to create samples. That way, as I blend them in, it's the same sound that we're hearing in the overheads. I've never been one for pulling in like a specific sample that I would use all the time, or pulling in a sample that isn't a part of the kit. Because then you get this weird sound as you pull up the overheads, and you have a different kick or snare sound in the overheads or in the room mics than you do on your spot mics. I like those sounds to blend together. It feels more natural and it feels more real that way. So what I always end up doing if I do need to pull in samples, sometimes if it's not a song that I've tracked here at the studio, you can get less than ideal sounding drums. And what I'll do is I'll find the best kick hit or the best snare hit, clip it, turn it into a sample, and then match it through to the kick or the snare, and that way we get a more cohesive sound in the kit, because it's the actual kick or the actual snare from the kit, and that's going to blend well with the overheads and the room mics or any reverb or anything we send to on the drum kit. So that's the way I usually do drum samples here. I always have to change this on the output here, but here's our mix ready to be mastered. We're going to pause there with the stream today. I'm going to come back probably in maybe an hour or so, and we're going to do the next song here. But thanks so much for hanging with me on this first stream here. If you're interested in going a little bit deeper into what you saw here today, I think I do have a tutorial up on the channel about that. You might have to go and find it. If you search for drum samples, or if you look in past live streams, I know I've done it as well. But maybe I'll do a live stream in a couple days here and see if I can do one. I know I have a couple songs that I'm putting samples on like that. But if you search on the channel, I think there's a couple videos on doing drum samples like that. And if not, I will make another one. But as I was saying, if you check out the link in the description, you'll see my 7-step mixing checklist. This is a completely free PDF that will walk you through the entire mixing process. And it's going to take away any of the guesswork and any of the hassle with mixing. It's going to help you get more professional and more radio-ready mixes in less time. So thank you so much for hanging with me here on this first stream. Hopefully I can jump back on to do another song here. But if not, I will see you in another stream very, very soon.